Hello, everyone. My name is Yawa Idi, and I'm the program coordinator for Africa Center's Enhancing Gender Equity Program. And you are listening to Better Than the Cure Preventing Intimate Partner Violence. This is a podcast that has been featuring a series of guests from different fields and sectors, all with knowledge and expertise on the factors, impacts, and consequences of intimate partner violence, specifically within African, Black, and Caribbean communities within Alberta. And today we have another very special guest. We have Joseph Lurie, who is the coordinator of Safe Families from the Edmonton Mennonite Center. And this is a program that focuses on domestic violence, which he'll share a little bit more of in a couple seconds here. And he's also a prominent leader, community leader in the South Sudanese community here in Edmonton, Alberta. So Joseph, why don't you let us know a little bit more about yourself, Safe Families, and the work that you do in the community?
Yeah, thank you, Yawa. Yeah, I'm Joseph Lurie. I coordinate the Safe Families program, which is mainly a program for men and boys to ensure that the newcomer men and boys are able to know the difference between the values that are acceptable here and those that could land one into some kind of problem. And so all is to build healthy relationships for the men and the boys to be able to be allies and support each other in the family environment. I have been coordinating that program for a little over 5 years. And so my background has been the business, youth worker, a diploma in social work. And so I'm also a community leader in the South Sudanese community.
Great. That's amazing. I love that you give us a little bit back on Safe Families, because that definitely informs and aligns with what we're trying to do with this project. So we'll just kind of talk about that first. In your experience with the project and coordinating it, when newcomers as men and boys come here, what difference do you see in the way that Canadian values are or Western values? What are the conflicts between the way they perceive relationships that may be acceptable back home but isn't so much here?
Well, we see a lot of the differences in the values, especially a lot of the communities that come from entitlement, where there is really a distinction between the male and female obligations. First thing is most of the men that I work with are from the African, background, and I have them wanting to import the culture in which back home you got your auntie, you got your neighbors who are able to help, and so a lot of those cleaning and cooking jobs are looked at as a female duty. And so when you come with that kind of thinking, and then it becomes very hard on the woman in the house. They could only be mom alone in the house. And so at the end of the day, she's tired, and that tiredness can easily create friction. Mm-hmm. There is also the culture of absence in the family, because men are used to sitting by themselves and the female, and so that doesn't build the emotional bonding. Mm-hmm. And so when you come home and when there are challenges, the way many men have learned to resolve is to say, I am the head of the house, and so I am here to discipline you not to do A, B, C, and we forget that in this relationship, we are actually not the head in terms of order, but in terms of providing. And so in terms of disagreements and resolving conflicts, we got to use the non-violence methods.
Right.
But because the men come from an environment where it is, the survival of the fittest, and your masculinity must be seen and experienced, and then it causes all kinds of chaos. It involves, police, social workers, and that could do as well define the beginning of the end of that family. Right. Even if it is not the end of that family, and then children are impacted in that family because one of the partners is not going to be living around. Right. To support those children.
Right, based on when social workers come in or police come in, because typically what they do is either remove, the perpetrator from the home, and now families are split up, which has a whole cascade of effects. But I'm really interested in hearing about how the program Safe Families is set up and how you actually go about changing those beliefs. And has it been successful in your program?
The program has relatively been very successful. The setup is we listen to the participants who want to learn some of the values that are around, And out of that, we are able to develop topics and invite in facilitators. We also see issues that have occurred and have, destroyed families, and we bring it in and we talk around that as well. And so that is where the success has come. We have also gone a step further, inviting those who feel that they are willing to share, their experiences, things that they've gone through, that they've learned the hard way, and they wouldn't want others to learn, through that hard way, going to courts and so on. And so those are some of the methods that we have used that have really yielded some successes. For example, a gentleman who has been, let out of the house by police and now has to go to court, and this mom could be learned or not even learned, and she was depending solely on the gentleman in the house, and so more challenges come into the house. But as a man also, you are no more in your house. And so that, again, creates another stress, another layer of challenges. How do you look amongst other people, other men? How does the community look at you? And unfortunately, some of the actions that the men take, it's because they put the community first, not the family first, and not the welfare of the community based on common understanding.
So when you have these men that come into the program, how do you foster a safe space for them so that they're willing to share these experiences, or even willing to learn, or even willing to talk about something like domestic violence or intimate partner violence?
One of the successes is in the name of the program, actually. If we had named it as domestic violence prevention,
Right.
as we initially started, and then nobody was coming because everyone said, well, we are all fine.
Yeah.
We are not very violent. And so we renamed the program into Safe Families and say, we are just coming to talk about how to build safe families where families, thrive. And so a lot of people, said, well, we really want to come and talk about that.
Wow.
And so they came in and we started talking about those challenges. And one of those factors that came up was the issue of money. Of course, a lot of the men were breadwinners, and so at this end, you are not recognized with your certificate sometimes, and you don't get a job. And so fights begin to come between the money that is from the child tax benefit. Men feel bad to be, borrowing or asking from the woman, but at the same time, if you don't talk, and then it leads to some kind of friction and confusion. And so that is one of those issues, but I would say the success is from the name. First, the name, and secondly, you ought to explain to these men and the boys that this is totally a different environment now. It has changed. It's not like where they say all roads lead to Rome. Now all our practices don't lead to happiness in the family. We got to redefine. We got to understand where we are.
No, that's a big thing, changing the language. And we had the same thing with one of our programs where the name was something about, impacts of dating violence. And we're like, we have to change that. If people hear that, they're not going to want to come. So you change it to something where it's not so explicit that you'll be talking about that, but you still address it in a way that's safe for people to come and they feel comfortable coming out. So I really like that as a challenge that you identified and changed. And when we talk about safe spaces and conversing about domestic violence, what do you think are some common misconceptions that stop men from entering the conversation? A lot of times when we think about intimate partner violence, men are always the perpetrators, they're always the abusers, which might be true in many, many cases. But what stops them from also being a part of the conversation? Because we know we need men to be a part of it.
Well, it's that culture of togetherness that we are a community, or I have my friends, and we are always together. And so to be seen to be going to programs that are talking about men being perpetrators and men being violent, men would ask themselves and say, well, if I go there, people are going to think I'm violent, and so I'm not going to go there. It's also some of the misconceptions from other men that if you are going for such conversations, it means you are telling people that you are really weak, you don't know how to handle your own matters, so why are you going there? But what is significant is it's not your weakness, it's not that you are violent. there should be no stigma. It's that you want additional knowledge and you want information on how to survive and thrive in this part of the world in which you are a stranger.
Definitely. And outside of your program, what are other resources that are available for men, or do you think need to be developed to make sure that, you know, African, Black, and Caribbean communities are best fighting or preventing intimate partner violence? Because I think this is a really great start, targeting, you know, men and boys, which we'll talk about the boys after in a little bit. But what other resources do you think are necessary on top of what you're already doing to prevent intimate partner violence?
I think the resources that needs to be developed are those materials that are, you know, culturally appropriate for especially the Blacks or the Africans. Also for them, seeing the facilitation being done by people they see themselves in, it's also a very good way. And other resources that we would need would be the outreach workers, because in this model that we are doing at Safe Families, we don't necessarily only wait for the participants to
Come to you.
We also take services to them, and we say, if you are alone in the family, you know, with your family only, or you want to invite your neighbors, we are willing to come and talk. We can talk about this topic, and you can ask anything that we can talk about. You don't have to come into, you know, the multitude of people that are going to be there. And then once they have that confidence, and then they're able to come out. So these are some of the materials that will need really outreach, taking services to the people, and having those conversations in the house. Because if you take materials, it also has got its part of the stigma. If you invite people into so many participants, some of the people in those participants would think that, you know, how is the outside world seeing me?
Yeah, when I'm going to this.
And so taking to them, building that relationship, and ensuring that they understand that it is learning. It's not anything. You are going to equip yourself with knowledge and know the environment and the culture that is here, so you can adapt, and then you can be successful.
No, that's a great point. And you do men and boys. So with the boys, do you tailor your sessions in a different way because they're younger and maybe they need to learn differently? But also, how important is it that young boys learn what healthy relationships look like, and how do you interact with them maybe different from older men?
Well, the boys is a combination of those who just arrived here as new, and those who came so young or who were born here. And now are teenagers. It's also different from them. And so the approaches are all different. For those who were brought so young and those who are born here, we talk about the law. We talk about, you know, how you can quickly close some of those windows by racking criminal records. And so how is it going to impact you? And so having these healthy relationships with everyone, beginning with yourself and in your family, is important. And then for those who just came as new or have spent a less time here, but they came as teenagers and have grown up into their young adults, we talk about the environment. What is the culture here? What are the values that are acceptable? And you put yourself into those shoes. How do you want to be served? And so we talk to them about treating your sister with respect, and how does respect look like?
Yes.
And so that extends to your girlfriend. If you've got a girlfriend, you've got to treat her as somebody who is a human being. You are equal. Definitely biologically you are different, but we are all human at the end of the day, right? And so we talk all about that, and then they can take from it. And we also encourage them to open up and share their experience, share their fears, and we talk about it.
Okay. And how successful has that been when you have young boys? Are they really open and ready to talk right away, or is it a gradual thing that usually builds up and then you have this rapport that's with the group?
For those who are born here and they've grown here, it's quite, it goes just like that. But for those who are either brought a little young or who came as already teenagers, it is very gradual. There is fear for them to open up. There is fear for them in that they see that, okay, maybe I'm going to talk something and people are going to see me as somebody who is violent. But we told them, with all the facilitators, we say we grew up as young kids and we all went through some of those mistakes. And this is why we want you guys not to go through the same mistakes. But the very interesting thing is bringing them together, the men and the boys together, and say, what, after knowing from the boys, what are the challenges that they see from their parents, from the men in the family. And we also ask the men, what are the challenges you see in the family from your boys or from other boys. And so we challenge ourselves about that, how to put that right, how to be a role model, how to ensure that, you have good relationship with everybody, how to ensure that you can sit around the table and resolve matters by talking, opening up a dialogue, but not necessarily yelling or insulting or throwing and breaking things here and there.
Yeah.
It won't help. It's not a solution.
Yeah.
But through the dialogue, you can express yourself. You will be understood, and eventually you will agree that we haven't agreed here. Let's move on.
Yes.
And in the next step, you will agree.
Mm-hmm. And do you find that they report that this has actually helped them change the way that they view relationships or gender relations, or this is something that's improved their interactions with both other maybe men and even females or women?
We have seen that that has definitely improved their relationship as peers. Now, if there is disagreement, it is not, the survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
They are able to, talk in a very loving way. Even with their parents, they are able to, accept things that they wouldn't have accepted unless they are physically punished. And so they've understood that the way for me and Dad to get along and really have a proper dialogue is not exercising physical punishment, but let's sit and talk about these other issues. Also, they are good to say, well, as I respect my sister and my friends around, I would also want to see my dad respect my mom. Yeah, and these are the things that you can copy and take and believe in them. Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. And now that you talk about parents and their relationships, do you do any work with parents or with the men? You have them remodel these healthy relationships with their relationships or in their families, and has that made a difference with the way the family structure now operates?
It has made a difference because mapping out the men and the boys was to make them understand and really become allies. But with the outreach that we do into the houses, that has made a tremendous difference because the woman and the girls in the house have been isolated from that conversation.
Right, they're not a part of
Now,
it.
bringing that conversation into the house gives them the opportunity to talk about that topic, and then if they have questions, they can bring forward. But even after you are long gone, they have two things. One, something to talk about. Two, they are also knowing what the culture is like, what the values that are acceptable are, and then they can pinpoint, corrections. But we have found in our outreach that the ladies, or the girls, and the moms are more calm and more confident in what they say.
Yeah.
And we found that the men sometimes, though they are a little confident, but it is either the highway or it's my way.
Yeah.
That is from the tone of the voice.
Yeah.
And we tell them this is why we are in the house, that there is no highway in the house. It's just all of us.
Yeah.
It is all our way.
No, that's great. And how is this program modeled? So what informed the way or even the topics that you use to talk with the men and the boys? How do you choose which one's the most important? How do you shape the program and say, okay, if we talk about this is going to help them the most? What do you use to develop your program?
We used two things. One, the majority, we gave them the right to vote, and whichever topic takes the majority votes, we go for that. But we also look at, do we have facilitators that we can find in the short term for this, or this topic needs a few weeks before we can find a facilitator.
Oh, okay, all right.
So and then we can interchange, or we can do as we find facilitators.
Okay, no, that's great. And you talk about them being open and talking about the mistakes that they made. Is there a way, or how do you encourage or suggest that we still hold men accountable or boys accountable for the wrongdoings that they've done, but we still give them space to grow and change the way that they believe? What's the best way to do that? Or in your program, have you?
Well, the best way is it may not be necessarily the best way, but one of the ways that we have used is these conversations informs us of the culture. It informs us of the consequences.
Yes.
And so tomorrow when you make a mistake, and then you should be in position to recall that conversation that, I've committed an offense here, and so I have to deal with the consequence. It's not because you are a man, it's not because you look different, but it's because something has gone wrong. And so making people to know about the values that are acceptable, the culture that is around, and as you move along, also letting them know that if we flip this around, we'll have to carry the consequence.
Right.
It's very important.
Right. And even if they do commit those commit those offenses, for example, will they still be welcomed back into the program? Do they still have the chance to, go through the program and experience, the learnings that other people are experiencing?
Yes, we still welcome anybody. We welcome them back, whether you have gone through some errors and have been charged or not with some criminal offense. To us, what matters is, are you willing to learn more? Are you willing to, if possible, share your experience? But if you don't want to share your experience, it's all okay, it's personal, but are you willing to learn? So you take something different home. So you are able to sit with your partner and say, you know what, I was wrong, but now I've understood where I was coming from, and this is my understanding of my mistake. So your partner can appreciate and genuinely accept your apology. And also you lead now by not turning back and coming to the same thing. Yeah.
So with this program, and it seems that you guys are doing so well already, what do you think is needed to maybe bring this on a larger scale? And do you think it would be beneficial to the broader community if this was not just maybe a Mennonite Center thing, but multiple communities were either using the same model or accessing this specific program?
We have been encouraging some of the facilitators that have come to take the word out there and share about this model so that other organizations or other communities or groups can also do the same thing, because definitely the Mennonite is not reaching everybody. It's just a very small number of men and boys.
Right.
And so if at every corner or in every community these conversations are happening, and then we are reaching far more people, and we can prevent so much that people either do unknowingly or they just don't care. But if we talk about that care, and if we talk about that knowledge, and then it closes those windows.
So beyond, outreach and the word, what other resources are needed to make the program run? Like for example, your program, obviously probably funding is a big one. Do you need more staff? Do you need more facilitators? Do you need, bigger space? Like what, in your opinion, would be needed to make this be the best program that it could be?
And that has been the struggle. The struggle is inconsistency in funding is one aspect. The other aspect is finding a kind of a middle space where it's easier for people to come, especially with the newcomer. A lot of them are still using, the public transport as an easy way to reach wherever they're going. And so that is another issue. The other challenge is, of course, everybody has to bring bread on the table, and so, their partner may be gone to work and there are some little kids. So if this gentleman is interested in learning, but he has got a 3-year-old,
right,
a 4-year-old, are we able to accommodate and do some, child care?
Right.
Yeah, so those are some of the challenges that that have been experienced in the program.
And then in terms of staffing, is it so you're just the coordinator of the program, but is there other staff or facilitators?
Yes, we have staff, and it has also worked very successful because we worked on the model of saying which communities do we want to work with, but keep the door open for everybody else. And so in this case, like currently we've been working with a few Congolese, we've been working with some few Syrians and some few Sudanese. And so what we do is we get staff known as connectors from these communities, and they are the ones to
Bring
recruit,
people.
identify, and even when we do to the outreach, they help lead us into those houses.
Oh, okay.
So that there is some kind of comfort that, you see your own, and these other strangers are working with your own. So those are the things that we have successfully applied. Yeah.
No, that's great. And when you talk about safe families, because we know families not just made up of men, do you see any vision for this program or any benefit for maybe including women into the conversation or having a separate programming for women? Is that something that you folks have considered going into the future?
Yes, we have looked at how, instead of us doing some outreach, how we can create an opportunity for the man to come with, his partner, and then we have all these conversations
Oh, nice.
together here. However, there is one important thing. We have also created an avenue where there are field trips, and so we say, come with your family,
Right.
and so you go as a family, and when we get there, and then everybody is involved in the activities, and when you go home, you think about it as to what further do you want to get involved in.
Right.
That would allow everyone in the family
To participate.
to learn and participate, yes. And when we talk about these issues and we take it into the houses, it becomes easy for everyone to talk about it.
'Cause they're
than
all
when
there, yeah.
We get the men to just learn about it and then don't share in the house, or instead use it as a way to do what he wants to do.
Right.
But if everybody is exposed to this, knowledge and information, and then it becomes easy in the house.
No, that's great. And now that you have, men and boys learning these healthy relationships and, they take it back to their families, do you think that intimate partner violence will greatly decrease now that they have this understanding? And is this something that can be sustained? So it's not just, they've gone to the program, Joseph has told me this is how I interact with my mom, my dad, my sister, my girlfriend, and that's it. But if they were to stop coming to the program, do you think that this is something that still would have a lasting impact going forward?
I think it will have a lasting impact for those who have come into the program, in that now children in the family are looking to the dad conducting himself differently and positively, and also talking about how these healthy relationships can be made to grow. So I believe, yes, it reduces the intimate partner violence, in that you would really feel bad after having been exposed to this information and knowledge, and you go do exactly the opposite of what is expected of you. Nevertheless, as our hope is that it decreases the intimate partner violence, but also among the participants are those who strongly believe in the traditional relationships where the boundaries are here very clear. You are not going to ask me to help you with A, B, C, and so I can only do this, and that becomes a problem, because, like we say, if you cannot help mop, if you cannot help cook, if you cannot help go shop, you don't have your aunties, you don't have your sisters, you don't have the neighbors. So you are actually, by doing all these things, you are supporting your partner, and your partner would then have energy, to develop any good relationship with you, and also by being around, that emotional attachment that was lacking now kicks in, and you get to understand each other a lot better, rather than thinking this person is just in the kitchen mopping and maybe going to work, and here I am, and you are in separate worlds, and you really don't get to develop that emotional attachment, because you are quite separate.
Yes.
You only meet in the bedroom, or you only meet around the table in dinner time. That does not allow you to build that relationship and know each other pretty well. Where I feel when I do something or say something that will hurt you, and you may react violently, that, and then if we are so close, I can identify that and I can prevent it.
No, that makes 100% sense, and I really appreciate that point in terms of the gender relations. If someone's not willing to understand, especially how the shift is, especially coming to Canada, if you want a successful marriage or a successful family, you really have to make peace with the terms that, okay, I might be in the kitchen, or my wife might be going out to work and making as much money as me, which is great. And I know we mentioned this whole topic has been about relationships and having men and boys understand how the values have changed. Outside of relationships, this project has identified, finances being an issue as well for intimate partner violence, or employment. If the man is not working and now, that creates some friction, or even parenting, the way parenting has changed. Does the program as well address those issues, perhaps finding men employment, providing, resume skills, other such things that would address, the factors that I just mentioned, or is the focus solely on just gender relations and understanding those values?
Yeah, we actually, fortunately, we don't only work on even talking about these issues. We know what causes low self-esteem. We know what has caused the unemployment, and so luckily we have those social workers and counselors at the Mennonite Center, and even those with our partners, and so we try to refer the participants to those social workers and counselors and to those partner organizations, and we do some follow-up.
Okay.
So we are not following up just to find out where you are and what you are doing, but we are following up to support you. So if another step is needed, we'll walk that step along with you.
Okay.
And ensure that you realize what you wanted. Yeah.
Okay, so you refer to other organizations or even within the Mennonite Center for those other programming that might be necessary.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
that's great. Do you think that maybe if that was something included in that Safe Families thing, it might be maybe more efficient, or do you believe that the current model where you just focus on the topics and refer out is the best practice for now?
Well, I think that wouldn't be the best practice in totality, because you are sharing information and knowledge, but then there are needs.
Yes.
And so if you don't address those needs, some of those needs are the ones that are fueling this, intimate partner violence. And so if your challenge is employment, if your challenge is you don't have a resume, if your challenge is the language, and then let's get you to the appropriate resources and get that support, so that you can see that there is some light at the end of the tunnel, and that may calm one down and say, you know what, I'm not lost.
Yes.
I'm not a failure.
Yes.
Yes.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And my last question for you here is, how can people that are listening or, watching, if they want to see more of the work that you're doing, or they want to say, what is Joseph up to, how can they continue to follow you and connect with you in the future?
Well, they can just call the Edmonton Mennonite Center and say, we are calling, we want to hear more about the Safe Families program. And then that is great. 780-424-7709 is the phone for the Edmonton Mennonite Center. And so they will be put in touch with what is happening.
Okay, awesome.
And even for those who are in the program, we always encourage them to go share what they are learning, and to be able to tell us what they feel is not going right as well. Yeah.
Awesome. So Edmonton Mennonite Center is where you can find Joseph Lurie and the Safe Families program and hear a little bit more of the work that he's doing if you are interested. Thank you so much for listening to Better Than the Cure, Preventing Intimate Partner Violence. We hope that you were able to pick a couple of things up on what you can do maybe for your organization, your group, or your community in terms of engaging men and boys and changing their attitudes and values in regards to gender relations here in Alberta. And once again, thank you so much for watching. We will see you all next time. Take care.
Thank you.